Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm sorry. It's continued to take a while to get this sorted out. I'm actually going to be trying something over the next few weeks where I am going to train my older two kids how to do some of the editing, because this part is the most time-consuming part of the process of content creation and podcasting and all that. And it's a lot of repetitive monkey work. Well, when you take two 11, almost 12-year-olds and you incentivize them with some money, suddenly their inner capitalist starts clicking and they realize, oh, hey, this could actually be kind of fun. Plus, they have their own aspirations of one day doing YouTube stuff and will probably be more successful than we could ever dream to be. But anyway, so that's kind of what I'm working on right now. And not going to lie, now with the prospect of them learning how to do it coming, I'm just like, oh, I can't wait. Because I love doing this. I love recording content with you guys. Both Michelle and I do. But it's a lot. The editing is the part that is not the fun part. So being able to delegate that, and they get a little bit of money, it's a good time. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at with that. I got a couple other things coming. I'm gonna start kind of slipping in some guest spots on here, because organizing a 2 hour long interview is fun, but it's a lot, and it's a lot of editing. There's a lot of delays. There's scheduling stuff. Whereas what I want to do here is kind of just more get regular folks in the door for a 15-20 minute conversation, and keep it pretty narrow. Here we're going to have a specific topic to talk about and get a regular person's insight onto this stuff, because yes, I am a regular person, but y'all are used to seeing me. I mean, running my mouth. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. I've got one queued up that I'm going to record this weekend. I'm probably going to record the guest ones as close together as I can and just stagger the releases like once a week or something like that. So still working out the kinks on that, but that's kind of the general trajectory that I'm wanting to go. Today, we are going to tackle a fairly straightforward topic, and this is probably going to be most beneficial for the newer people, because a lot of the seasoned folks probably already have this down pat. However, there's some of you that don't. So let's sit and talk about it. How do you manage a code drama? Now, let me enunciate very clearly. It is not code trauma, but code drama. And what is this? Well, if you've been in the business for any length of time, you understand. It's the kind of call where the call itself, not that big of a deal. Pretty straightforward. Nothing really life-threatening. You may or may not even need to transport. Just a very basic call that becomes a shitstorm of drama. And this can be caused by a number of different things. Most often, and this is not derogatory in any way, but just a factual statement, most often it is the patient and or family members that are allowing the emotions to go unchecked and are not just stressed, but they start getting ornery, and they start being a little more verbally combative, or just raising the temperature / stress in the room. It's very easy for us to get irritated with this, because we can come in and objectively see the call and size up everything and say, okay, this is not that big of a deal, we're fine. But you have to deal with the temperature that's in the room before you get there. This is something that I think especially newer people struggle with, because newer people, I think, struggle a lot more with differentiating between what are true emergencies and what are just elevated emotions for a non-emergent situation. I know for myself that was a very difficult thing to learn how to do, especially since I have just a little touch of the neurodivergence that I have a hard time like putting my brain in someone else and understanding things from their perspective. Not I don't know, in a conversational way, but like it's very easy for me to be like, well, this makes sense in my head, why doesn't it make sense for you? So I really struggled a lot with that when I was brand new. Now, yeah, it's just another day on the job. I had one partner who pointed out, he's like, most of our calls could probably technically be coded as psych calls, simply because of the anxiety and stress levels that get brought into these calls that don't need to be there, that accentuate a problem that is or isn't there. But that aside, again, not in a condescending way, that's more just a humorous, if you do the job, you can probably relate to that a little bit. So How do you deal with a co-drama, especially for you new people here? Number one, don't add to it. Don't go in and just start hooting and hollering and getting into the finger pointing, she said, whatever. Be calm. Raise your voice only as a last resort to set the temperature in the room. So when you come in, always, always, always have the kind of default mode of, we're not going to add to this. Well, kind of your second piece of this is you have to take control of the room. And this is something that can be accomplished by any cert level. Because when you walk in the door, all these people see is EMS. They don't differentiate between EMT, AEMT, paramedic. They don't care. You were the ambulance person that they called to show up. So this is something where you and your partner work out if you're in a situation where you have a partner, or if you're like me as a QRV medic, you either are the first one there or you're the third one there. When you come in, you have to take control of the room. Now, this doesn't need to be a hostile takeover. This doesn't need to be you just start yelling until you're yelling louder than everybody else. There are times, unfortunately, where that does become necessary. That is an unavoidable situation when you are in uncontrolled environments. You don't have the luxury of being on home turf. You are on the patient's home turf. So you have to be careful how you address this, but there's times where you need to just man up, woman up, whatever, and get loud. But that's not your primary way to do this. Often when we walk in the room, attention usually does focus to us in some way, shape, or form. You're going to be barraged with a bunch of stuff, but that's because the attention is now on you. You being able to come in and be like, hey, what's going on? That's usually how here's how I do things. I'm walking up to the house. Someone's, either at the door or I walk in. I'll be like, hey, what's going on? Cool. My tone is upbeat. It's a little higher pitch. I end on a higher pitch, which communicates friendliness. It communicates openness. It communicates, hey, I want to talk. I want to be involved here. And it's also non-confrontational. If I walked up and so what's going on? I said the same words, but that tone is going to register differently with people. So being able to control your tone, purposefully be upbeat, purposefully lighten the mood a little bit, because 9 times out of 10, the tensions before you arrive on the scene are way higher than they need to be. Way, way, way higher. And even if they're not, it's still good to try to put people at ease, even if it's a chaotic call, even if it's a bad trauma, an assault, whatever. Obviously, read the room. There's certain situations where it's not appropriate for you to come and hey, so what's going on? Okay, yeah, there's obviously exceptions. This is a nuanced conversation, people. General rule, when you're walking into a residence for your average call, hey, what's going on? Cool. You are absorbing the attention in the room. And how you react, the first words out of your mouth after you are barraged with everything that is coming from the patient and their family, friends, whoever's there at scene, your next words will set the tone for the rest of the call. So choose those words carefully. Choose that tone very carefully. Because if you come in on a bad foot, the patient's not going to want to cooperate with you nearly as well. The family's not going to want to cooperate with you nearly as well. You're putting yourself automatically at a disadvantage. So be careful. Choose those words and those tones very carefully. So you've taken control of the room. You've lowered the temperature a little bit. You've gotten everybody opening up. Everybody's cooperating. Well, then the next thing you can do, or a third piece of this, there's not really an order. This is just different strategies for handling these situations. Give out assignments. Usually there's one family member who is the most vocal, who is the most upset, the most anxious. And a lot of times, unfortunately, it's because they've had bad experiences, or at least neutral experiences with EMS, where they didn't feel heard. They didn't feel like they were taken seriously. And so they're the person who's kind of stepping in to say, I'm going to make sure this is done right. So that's the person that you need to target first, that you need to connect with, that you need to speak to them directly. You need to be answering, not outright answering those questions, but projecting that energy to them of, I got this. I'm in control. Here's how I need you to help me. And so start giving people assignments. Tell them to get ID, insurance, get a medication list, or just the medications themselves. Go find their most recent discharge paperwork. Give them something to do. Have them help you clear a pathway so that you can get the stretcher in or the stair chair. Recruiting people for assignments often pacifies them a little bit because they feel like, okay, they're taking this seriously. Like we're doing something cool. But it also lets them feel a little bit less helpless because a lot of times the reason people call us is because they feel helpless. By letting them participate, you're actually building a good rapport with them. Now, there's a line to that. I am hesitant to let people in the back of my truck, even if they're helping. Even if they've been helpful, once we get the patient into that ambulance, the dynamics change a little bit. Now we are in a more controlled environment, and it is our environment. We are officially in our turf, and we can leave if we need to. Once you have gotten to that point, that's when you communicate with the family, say, hey, we're going to be in here for a minute. We're going to do a couple of things. We're going to go ahead and close the doors, have a little bit of privacy. Here's what to expect. Just give us a little bit, and then we're going to be on our way. Cool. You have managed expectations. You have brought the temperature down. You've given people assignments. You have taken control, but done it in such a way that it wasn't a conflict. You don't, just because someone sounds aggressive at first doesn't mean that that needs to be a conflict. Those are the people that you need to pacify a little bit. And it's not just men and women. I've noticed it a lot in men. They tend to be a little more abrasive outright. And once you demonstrate to them, one, you're not intimidated, two, that you're confident, that you know what you're doing, cool, they'll back off. They will. Men do this little like kind of like alpha comparing thing where we kind of look each other up, and be like, okay, you know, is this a dude I can trust and I can kind of lay back and let him take the reins in this situation, or do I need to stay in the driver's seat? That's how men evaluate each other. Period. The fucking end. It's not even a threat evaluation. It's more of a, if you challenge my authority, can I take you on kind of thing. And yes, you can call it weird or whatever, but there are a lot of common trends in the genders for this kind of thing. Women do their own separate thing, which is a whole different conversation. But that's not the point of today. At any rate, it's very easy to navigate these situations if you're not looking for a fight. Because that's a common problem too. And a lot of younger providers pick up a lot of bad habits because they will be with people who take these kinds of calls and make them into conflicts, make them into fights. They make it to where you have no choice but to have conflict. Now, a very common example of this is in choosing destination. I actually had this conflict not that long ago on a call where family was very adamant where Mima was supposed to go. And we had to put our foot down and say, that's not happening. But you do it in such a way where you explain to them that you hear their request, you acknowledge their wishes, but also communicating to them it is outright not in the best interest of the patient, and that if you take them to where they are wanting that patient to go, then they are going to have a massive delay in care because that particular facility will not be able to manage what is going on with that patient. So whether you're having to have that conversation with the patient directly or with a family member, that is a conversation that you need to handle delicately, because especially if you're dealing with more vulnerable family members, the patients themselves are vulnerable, whether they're extremely young or extremely old. Your family members are going to be extra protective of those kinds of patients. So being respectful and communicating with them is incredibly important. Do you occasionally run into the situation where you need to involve law enforcement because family won't let something go? Absolutely. But there's a lot of tools in the toolbox that you can use before it gets to that point. So use those tools. Use those mechanisms to cool things down and work with your patient. Work with the family. Let them feel like they belong in this. And guess what? Most of the time, the drama level will drop. The energy will drop. Everybody will be copacetic, and they will be thanking you for everything, even if there's nothing wrong with the patient. Even if it's not that big of a deal and you're literally just giving them a taxi ride with vitals. they're still thanking you because they feel like you are doing all of these things and they feel like they were a part of it. Cool. That's a way to lower the stress of your job quite a bit if you just put a little bit of time and effort into it. So, if you learned something, good, share it with your friends. If you're offended, okay, put a helmet on. See you next time. Bye bye.